Now, ladies and gentlemen, the best knives for $200 and under for Counter-Strike Global Offensive. You guys seem to have loved the very first video we did just a couple weeks ago, where we kind of revamped this series we started doing almost a year ago at this point for the best knives under a certain price point. Every single week we're going to be going up $100. Last week we did $100, this week we're going to do $200. And these prices are of course based on buff, and if you cannot use buff or access it, I have 2 videos focusing about that and talking about it. You guys can check on over to my sponsor, Skinport, the biggest and best North American and European buying and selling marketplace for Counter-Strike Global Offensive skins. Some of these knives could be a little cheaper than buff prices, most likely not, because buff obviously is the biggest marketplace in the entire world. But the good thing about Skinport is practically anyone can use it that watches this video. And if you guys do decide to cash out, it's only 6% sales fee, anything over $1,000. And if you sell anything, it goes directly to your bank via bank transfer. If you guys want to check out Skinport, I'll put myself and the channel. If you can't use buff, that'd be pretty cool. So further ado, let's hop right into the video. So first things first, I gotta give a quick shout out to these knives. Man, they are a big step up from the $100 range. Just $100, you have a lot more options than the very first one. The very first video, it was very limited, right? We only kind of dealt with gut knives, but I feel like the $100 range is very popular for a lot of people. But I honestly feel like this extra $100 is a huge step up. You can practically get almost any knife in the game. I say almost, pretty much anything but a butterfly knife. Those are going to be probably a couple more $100 from now in the next couple videos. But the very first knife I want to discuss is the Huntsman Black Laminate Battle Scarred. This is a knife I feel like some people are absolutely going to love, and this is a knife I really like. If you like the default look in CSGO, which is listed for $198, this thing is awesome. I really do think this is a really cool knife. I myself recently have not really liked gloves. I never really have liked gloves ever since they came out. I think they're decent. My opinion changes on them all the time, but I always go and seem to go with the Nox in CSGO. And I like the default look. And if you like that look and you like the default knife look, but you want a decent knife that's actually a real price, that's actually tradable, this might be the option for you that some people will just really, really like. And the good thing about it being battle scarred, of course, it's going to be very, very dark, but some people might not like that either because it's going to be hard to see, especially if you play on a really crappy resolution. Now, our second knife up here, once again, not in any single order, listed for $199, it's the Huntsman Knife Crimson Web in the minimal wear condition. This, if you like the Huntsman knife, might be your favorite option. I recently have been going with the Crimson Webs, especially for the Karambit. Especially with a Huntsman here, with this budget, you can actually get a knife with a few different webs. You might like that, you might don't care. Some people have an opinion on that, some people don't. But this one in particular, you can actually get a knife with some webs on it for a Crimson Web for $199, which is pretty good, especially if you want that red themed look. Maybe you want to spend more money on gloves. Well, this is a really good budget knife, and the Huntsman has a really nice blade, and it goes really, really well with some gloves, or just you like that default look. This is definitely it because it's one of those OG knives. Our third knife here, ladies and gentlemen, for $200 and under, once again, no particular order, $198, is the stiletto knife, but this is the Slaughter in the minimal wear condition. Of course, you can get the field tested for $189, which actually might be better for some people. People actually might like the $189 one versus the $198 one. It's a $10 difference, but I do think it actually does matter. Obviously, if you get a higher float field tested, you can actually see not a whole lot of scratches, but you are going to see scratches on it. Compared to the minimal wear one for an extra $10 for seeing no scratches, I personally think that's worth it, but some people might feel a little different. Obviously, with the Slaughter, especially on a knife and a blade this small, you're not going to see that big of a difference, but especially if you like the stiletto, this is a great budget version for you to get introduced to CS knives. Maybe this might be your first knife in CS. This ain't the worst option if you like the stiletto and you like the newer knives in CS. Now, for our fourth option, I believe, is something I never really thought would be on this list, ladies and gentlemen, but is the Felschen Knife Gamma Doppler, a newer knife inside of CSGO. The Felschen knife obviously isn't new. It's a few years old, actually. It's 6 or 7 at this point, but the Felschen, okay, Gamma Doppler. It's newer inside of CS, which is really, really awesome. You're obviously, though, going to be dealing with the crappiest, filter, or let's just say phase on a Doppler, which this is going to be phase 1, but it still is a Doppler, and this can be liquidated if you ever want to sell it, which is really, really good. Meaning, if you ever need to sell an item, Dopplers for knives usually always sell the best. Gamma Dopplers, they take a little longer, but they're pretty good. But it looks really, really nice for what you're getting, especially in the factory new. Of course, if you spend an extra couple dollars on a knife like this, you can get a phase 2 for only $20 more. Phase 3 goes up more and more. Phase 3 is almost the exact same price. price as phase 1. Then phase 4 is like $40 more because it looks very, very green, the closest thing to an emerald, which is pretty interesting. So it would be your choice if you want to spend an extra 20 or 30 bucks, which I would spend an extra $15 for sure and get the phase 2, but we obviously are dealing with phase 1. So let me know what you guys think about that knife specifically. I'd really like to hear you guys' opinion on that because I don't know what I feel about it. Our next knife up here, which I've pretty much lost track of, is the Ursus knife Tiger Tooth minimal wear for 197 bucks, ladies and gentlemen. Now the Tiger Tooth, I feel like, is a knife that gets hated on a whole lot inside of CS. It's pretty much a budget and poor man's version of a lore knife inside of CS. But let me tell you, back in the day, Tiger Tooth knives were actually really, really popular, especially on a thing like Karambit. We're dealing with the Ursus today, the box cutter. This is some people's favorite knife inside of CS as of recently, like one of the newer knives in CS. And this is one of my favorite knives in Counter-Strike as of right now. For 197 bucks, you're getting a pretty cool thing inside of CS. Obviously, factory new actually is a little cheaper, so you could go with the $194 one. 197 bucks though is for the minimal wear, which I wouldn't even really suggest doing. It's just a little more rare than the factory new one for just a couple dollars less. Our next knife up here, which is actually the more expensive man's version of the lore knives, and that actually is the lore, ladies and gentlemen. 196 bucks for the flip knife lore in the field tested condition. And you're gonna be like, whoa, field tested, we gotta take a step back. Some people also hate the flip knife. The flip knife is a love or hate relationship. You either love this thing or you absolutely hate it. I feel like there's no in between with it, and this is one of the best skins on the flip knife as of right now. The lore is one of the best looking knives in the game, and it's very, very expensive in the higher conditions on some different knives. This is a really good addition, I think, to some people's collections inside of CS. This also might want to get you start collecting knives inside of CS. That's what it made me do back in the day. I started collecting flip knife fades, and I wanted to collect other knives that were fades, like Karambits, butterfly knives, bayonets, M9s, and such. And I eventually did that. But this might make you want to do the exact same thing. So I think this for 196 bucks for the lore knife anyway is very, very nice. The flip knife though, that's the only downside to it, and you're gonna have to spend a couple extra $100 more if you want to get a decent knife with the lore on it for what most people think would call a decent knife anyway. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, is the Bowie knife marble fade for factory new, of course, for $190 US. This is a knife which used to not be so expensive. This is a knife as well where if you maybe can't afford gloves, the Bowie knife is a way for you because you can't really see gloves when you're running around with a knife. And then Bowie knife, once again, kind of like the flip knife, you either love it or you hate it. I feel like there's no in between. The only thing that people don't like about the Bowie knife, of course, you can't see the gloves, which could be a pro or con for you. I personally really like the bullet animation. The blade's a little too long, but if you like a lot of the knife itself and the skin on it, which this is a really nice skin on this knife, this might be the way for you, especially for 190 bucks. It does save some room for some skins if 200 bucks is your budget. Now, next up on this list is the bayonet black laminate in the battle scarred condition. So of course, we're dealing with the black laminate, like our very first option on the list with the Huntsman. This is a little different than the Huntsman. The black laminate on the bayonet actually looks very, very good, especially in the battle scarred condition. The blade people really don't mind. It's more so of the handle, especially with the black laminate. The only good part about the black laminate for some, especially on the handles, is it actually changes the look of the handle versus the bayonet handle. On other knives, doesn't look the greatest, but I think it looks fine. But this knife in particular, especially if you're just starting out, you want the pullet animation for the knife itself. That's a decent looking knife. This is definitely a way to go. Now, runner up to the bayonet. If you want a bayonet that's even cheaper than this, is the bayonet blue steel battle scarred. This thing, if you like the pulling animation for the bayonet, that's all you care about. You don't care about anything else. This is a great budget option, as well as caution tape gloves in like a well-worn field test condition. Those are a really, really good combo. I actually had that for a very long time a little while ago. I was selling some skins and I wanted to pick up something that was very cheap. So that's a good runner-up to those and this knife in particular. Now, our second to last knife up on this list is the skeleton knife. So like I said earlier, you have a lot of options on this list, a lot of different knives on this list, which is very, very awesome. Now, field tested for the urban masks, okay? You're gonna get an in-between. It's not gonna look absolutely garbage, but it's also not gonna be the most expensive one on this list where it looks really, really cool. One of the cool things I would say about having an urban mask knife nowadays is that no one really knows that these things exist. I would honestly be safe to say. These are such old skins inside of CS that no one really cares about or looks at. I think if you wanna start collecting knives, kind of like the Tiger Tooth, you might be addicted to the urban mask because it has a white background, and some people like one color of a knife. Some people like the black laminates because they like the black. knives. Some people like the Dopplers because they have blue backgrounds. 195 bucks, ladies and gentlemen. I think this knife, for the budget it is, I think it was one of the best looking skeleton knives in the game if that's your thing. This could go really, really good with some gloves. It could not go good with some gloves. That's the good thing about having a solid color to you. Of course, last up on this list, you guys might be surprised by this addition on the list, but is a Karambit, ladies and gentlemen. Not any sort of Karambit, but is this, of course, the Scorched. People are not going to love this knife. People are not going to absolutely hate it. I think you're going to be happy that you're getting a Karambit if you're getting this. Obviously, getting a Scorched isn't going to be the best looking knife in this game, but of course, with this kind of budget, you're going to really be having to deal with that. There's also the field tested, which really fluctuates in price, which the wear actually is pretty much the same as well worn for some reason for the field tested and well worn. For a couple extra more dollars, you can get the field tested one. If you want to get a really, really good float, it is going to cost you $205, which I would suggest going with, especially if you want a decent looking Karambit. Some runner-ups for an extra $50 more or $20 more, of course, are Karambit Ultraviolets, of course. Those look really, really nice. So if you guys are looking for a Karambit, I mean, this is a pretty good choice for a budget option. Once again, it would cost you an extra couple hundred to get a really, really good looking Karambit at least, because Karambits are so old and they're very, very expensive nowadays. Tell me what you guys think of all these choices down below. Did you end up picking up one off Buff or using the link down in the description below? It takes you over to Skinport, of course. Have to give a quick shout out to them. Stay positive, stay sexy. I'm out, guys. Peace.